Hello, I'm Dr. Nicholas Fogelson from the Pearl Women's Center in Portland, Oregon, and this is...
I'm Dr. Rick Rosenfield at the Pearl Women's Center in Portland as well. This is our pilot episode here, just like you'd see on a pilot cable series. We decided that we're going to do a weekly discussion about various topics. Hopefully you guys are going to chime in and let us know what to talk about in future weeks, but today we thought we'd start easy. And what are we going to talk about today, Nick?
We're going to talk about birth control pills.
The pill, okay?
The pill.
And how many pills are there out there? Like 250?
Hundreds.
At least? Hundreds.
So let's hit a couple of little things about birth control pills. First of all, this is one of the most common ways that people prevent pregnancy in the United States. In fact, it is the most common way outside of barrier methods like condoms. Now, worldwide, it's not necessarily the most common, but in the United States, it is the most common.
So how do these things work, Nick?
Well, basically, this is a pack of birth control pills here. And you'll notice that it's got 28 pills in it. Any pack you get, they look all kinds of different ways. This is a square pack. This is one of the samples that the pharma companies just give us.
You don't need to take one, by the way, to show them this, do you?
No, I'm not gonna take one. I don't need to grow any breasts. But so this is a normal pack of birth control. Some of them look like this. Some of them are round, but they all have a very common thing about them, that they all have 28 pills in them. Now, there is a few birth control pills that actually have 84 pills in them, but you can kind of imagine that those are just 3 packs on end that are put in one package. That's like Seasonal and Seasonique. Those are 3 packs. But they're basically 3 packs packaged in one box. And you'll notice any birth control pill has a whole bunch of pills of one color and then a few pills of another color. And this particular one has some brown pills. Forget that. That's a little complicated. Those are actually iron pills, and it just has to do with this particular brand. But what you'll find is that all the pills have one color, and those have what in them, Rick?
Well, the pills that have the one color are more than likely going to be 2 different ingredients, which are going to be estrogen and progesterone. Is that what you're talking about? You're talking about
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So estrogen and progesterone. So basically, what birth control pills do is, some would say in the most simplistic way, they trick your body into thinking they're pregnant. And that's a very simplistic way to think about it. But a little more complicated way is estrogen and progesterone tell your brain that the ovaries are making enough of your own estrogen and progesterone, and then they send through a signaling pathway down to the ovaries to tell them to stop making it. And by telling the ovaries to stop doing it, basically they shut down the process that causes you to make eggs, and therefore make it impossible for you to get pregnant. Furthermore, the progesterone, which is in there, also causes the mucus produced in the cervix to get really, really thick. So if sperm goes up against the cervix, it can't get through. And that's actually one of the primary ways it prevents pregnancy as well. So if you were to take estrogen and progesterone every day, no matter what these bottom pills show, just forget that for a minute. If you were to just take these pills every day, you would not be able to get pregnant.
And the reason for that is that taking these pills makes the brain think that you're releasing an egg every month, but you're actually not. And in order for you to get pregnant, the sperm and the egg, they need to meet, and that's how an egg gets fertilized. That's how pregnancy occurs. So when you take these pills, your brain says, oh, I don't need to send any more signals down to the ovary, and so your body is basically under the impression that you don't need to have a rise and fall of these hormones because we're giving them to you in a prescription, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Some way you think about it, that the signaling being produced by these pills is kind of louder than the signaling being produced by your normal hormone system. And so when you're on them, even though there may be a slight cycle in your own system, it's like there's 2 different sources of music in the room, and one of them's really loud and one of them's really soft. All you hear is the loud one. And this one's a lot louder than what's going on already in your body. That sounds bad, but it's really kind of okay. Basically, when you take it, your normal signal, your normal pathway just sort of stops functioning, and what functions instead is the pathway that is being created by the pills, and that is a pathway that doesn't allow you to get pregnant and also tells your uterus when to have a period. And a lot of the reasons why people use birth control pills isn't just for contraception, but because what you find is that when you're on birth control, your cycles become regulated by the birth control pills instead of by your normal cycle. And that's where these other pills come in. If we were to just have a pack that looked like this, that never had anything else, you would not be able to get pregnant because you wouldn't ovulate and you'd have very thick cervical mucus and the sperm could never get up into the uterus. But there's a couple problems with that. One is that people, when the pills were designed, everyone figured that people would want to have a period. and that because when you don't have a period, that's part of this means that you're pregnant. But of course, you're not pregnant. But people worry when you miss your period that you might be pregnant. So when they designed the pills, they said, "Wait, we got to have a way for people to actually have a menstrual cycle while they're on the pill." So voila, what we'll do is we'll create some different pills that allow people to have a period. And what these pills are is answered. In reality, is they're nothing. They're placebo pills. They have absolutely nothing in them. So
some people say that they're sugar pills, but they may not actually have sugar in them. But for all intents and purposes, there's no reason to take those pills.
Right. So if you were to take a birth control pill on day 1, day 2, day 3, each one you take one a day. When you get to this one, you could take this or you could just take nothing. What's important is that you don't take one of the blue ones. But as long as you take either nothing or this for these 4 days, then you're going to have a period during those 4 days. And the reason is because you get what we call a progesterone withdrawal, which means that progesterone, which is in all these blue pills, won't be there anymore. And maybe on one of these podcasts we can actually pull out a big paper chart and show you exactly how this hormone cycle works. But when the progesterone goes away, you'll have a period. And so since you've had progesterone all this time and then you don't have progesterone right here, you'll have a menstrual cycle. So if you take the pack like this, where you start on day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way, when you get to here, you'll have a menstrual cycle. And then you'll get to the next pack and you'll stop bleeding and then go through that same cycle. So if you do it every month, you'll have a period in these last 4 days every single month. If you never take those pills, more or less you'll never have a period. And some people do that and they never have a period. The only problem is that if you never have a period at all, people get what's called dysfunctional bleeding, and they'll start having unscheduled bleeding, and they'll bleed various days when they don't know when they're going to bleed. And so there is something called extended cycle use of birth control, which is where you only take this last row every 2 months or every 3 months or every 4 months. I don't know what you recommend, Rick, but I usually recommend that people do it at least every 3 months, take that last row. That way you'll have a relatively controlled and regular cycle during that 3rd month. Because if you stay on the active pills all the time, day after day after day, you'll have really kind of irregular bleeding eventually.
Well, and it's interesting you mention that, because this particular pill has just the blue, but sometimes you'll open up a pill pack, there might be 4 different colors. And what that really refers to is that sometimes the pharmaceutical companies have tried to market different reasons to take pills, and those different colors might be different doses of the medicine. But the main thing to understand is that a combination birth control pill, which is how we refer to these things in medicine, as opposed to a single medication pill, which we can talk about as well, maybe in a different podcast. But the combination pill has both estrogen and progesterone, and sometimes the doses or the chemical formula of those medications might be a little bit different. And that's why we think it's important to see experts about this, because there might be different side effect profiles of one pill versus another. There might be a better dose of estrogen for someone at a certain body weight than somebody else. And the whole idea of having that withdrawal bleed is not a bad idea if we're trying to have a predictable time that patients bleed, because the biggest side effect that people complain about is irregularity in the bleeding, or perhaps some other things that are mentioned in these very, very complicated and difficult to read inserts, which you can see how much information there is in here. I mean, just to give you an idea for the amount of information. That's a lot of stuff for you to take on, but really, the side effects that people complain about include things like headaches, nausea, and then irregular bleeding. But,
right.
I think the most important thing that we would like to talk about is, if you're interested in getting on birth control pills in general, you should see a medical professional. We would certainly love to see you at Pearl Women's Center. We do a lot of contraceptive management, and maybe we can get into this a little further next time.
Exactly. And not only do we deal with birth control pills, of course, but any kind of contraception that's on the market, as well as routine gynecology, as well as specialist gynecology. And Rick and I are really good gynecologic surgeons as well. And that's probably the thing that we're the most expert in. I've completed a fellowship in advanced gynecologic surgery from Emory, and Rick's been doing really advanced stuff for over a decade. And anybody that needs anything done that is surgical in gynecology, you really couldn't come to a better place than the Pearl Women's Center. So if you have more specific questions about birth control pills or anything else, respond to this on the Facebook or on wherever this appears. Or send
call
an email.
Call the office and make an appointment. We'd be happy to see you.
Right here where my finger is, there's going to be an email address, bonk, 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 and there's also going to be a Twitter handle and some other things. And you'll see them come up right now. And you can respond to them and tell us what you want us to talk about. We will be doing this every week. And for future questions, just let us know, and we would love to answer them. And if you have specific questions about your specific medical issues, we would love to see you at the Pearl Women's Center. We also have a third member of this trio, which is Kyle McAvoy, who's in the office next door. She is a wonderful nurse practitioner and can see you as well. If you prefer, we would love to see you here at the Pearl Women's Center. Anything to add for this inaugural episode, Rick?
Nope. 10 minutes and 40 seconds into it, I think we ought to probably say goodbye until next week.
I think so. And in the future episodes, if we still film it in this location, you might see some books back there because I haven't entirely moved into my office.
That's true.